I've got to go up the front. Mine's going for a walk up near the anchor. There we go. You all right there, George?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm just going under the bait a bit. Where's yours? And I'm coming over.
This is a nice fish. About 450 kilometres north of Sydney is the small seaside township of South West Rocks, located on the shores of Trial Bay. Settled in 1866, South West Rocks was originally intended to be a safe harbour between Sydney and Brisbane. The jail on top of the hill at Trial Bay housed prison labourers who were there to construct a breakwater for the proposed harbour. After around 300 metres of the breakwater was completed, the bay became shoaled up and it made it extremely shallow for ships. Ultimately, the scheme failed and the idea of the safe harbour was abandoned. Even though it's a popular tourist destination during the holiday season, South West Rocks has largely escaped the trappings of other holiday locations along the mid-north coast, and it still holds most of its small town charm. On the fishing front, this place is about as good as it gets. Anglers can target everything from bream in the estuary to blue marlin on the continental shelf, and all within half an hour of the boat ramp. Due to the location of South West Rocks, there is a mixture of tropical and subtropical species in its surrounding waters, and it's one of the few places you can catch the likes of mangrove jacks and giant trevally one minute, then snapper and mulloway the next. There are plenty of accommodation options in and around the area, but for guys like ourselves towing the 6 metre Evolution, the Big 4 Sunshine Holiday Park offered everything we needed, including parking for the boat and trailer, a boat washdown area, and comfy spacious cabins and large open grounds that are also home to some of the friendly local wildlife. On this trip, I was fishing with my good mates George Trinkler and Quinn Scott, and the next morning we were up and on the water at dawn for a session on the annual run of Spanish mackerel at nearby Grassy Head. Having the right bait is a vital part of any sort of fishing, and this morning, as you can see, it is very, very busy here on the bait grounds at South West Rocks. And although it's fun catching the bait, we're on a very short time frame here. Everyone is going as quick as they can to catch as many baits as they can to get the mackerel bite, because it's going to be a first light dawn thing, probably till about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So you're going as quick as you can to get out, and it's like a race of who can get their bait and get over to the grounds first. It really is back to basic sort of fishing, and it's an important part of your fishing career. Learning how to catch bait will make you a far better fisherman. What we've got is a tiny little split shot and a tiny little hook, just like that little KS size 1. Little tiny pieces of bait, and I think that's one of the mistakes a lot of people make, is they just use far too big a piece of bait for a fish that they may be trying to catch that's only got a small mouth, like these yellowtail and slimy mackerel. You want them to just come through and inhale that in one go. We flip it out, we've got a bread burley with a few pilchards in the pot. George is just tapping it, and even it's quite interesting that in these areas, even just tapping the pot helps to bring the fish around. They're used to the sound. We flip this out, it just sinks down unweighted, and if all goes well, you'll get the bait pretty quickly. All right, plenty of baits in the tank. We've got one more stop to make, heading over to the breakwall. We're going to try and catch 2 small bonito, which are going to go into the live bait tubes, and then it's over to Grassy and we start fishing for the mackerel. So we've got our tank of small live bait that come in now off the Trial Bay breakwall and the jailhouse up there. There's a big bommy that's just here and around this. We're going to try and catch some small bonito, which will also tow around for big Spanish mackerel. But while we're doing this, we're going to put a small live bait out because there's plenty of mackerel all through this area. You may even find yourself a cobia or something else. So we'll get a bait out and we've started fishing. You got a bunch of them, Quinny? Yeah, mate. All right, I'll get out of the way. Get this out of the way. One sec. Get rid of this guy. We're only going to get 2 baits here. We've got the slimy tubes, which are going to become bonito tubes,
if we can get more in.
If we can jam a couple more in, we will. How many you got, mate? 2, 3, 4. Well done.
6, 5.
Now that is how you catch bonito.
Couple short, but anyway.
And the great thing about these tubes is just a little bit of water pumping up through there. A lot of people think they need to have huge pumps to make those tubes work. You just need a small pump that just has a nice little bit of flow through it, and those baits just sit head down in it and the water just flows through their gills. Keeps them alive all day. Very handy for marlin fishing, or in our case today, mackerel fishing. Normally you put one bait per tube, but we can fit 2 in each. We just got to get over to the reef and hopefully find a big Spanish. Let's go, George. What's the plan here, mate?
We got a little bit of reef just off Grassy Headland Leg. Stretches for about 500 metres.
Yep.
Fair bit of current running over the top of it here. And judging by the amount of people that are not at work this morning, I'd say the mackerel are on.
I'd say so, mate. But you get plenty of other stuff here too, don't you?
Yeah, you can catch anything here. Cavia,
Yep.
Spanish mackerel, spotted mackerel. It's mostly known as mackerel ground, but yeah, the guys catch jewfish here and snapper and
Yeah, okay. Cool.
all sorts of cool stuff.
Good stuff. So we'll just work this for a little bit and then trundle our way up. There's a few guys starting to hook up. That guy over there, there's a guy up here, and there's some guys over
Yeah,
there
so
hooked
a
up.
few guys hooked up around us there.
Hopefully a patch of fish moving through. Well done, Quinny. How's that? Had the livey out, couldn't get a touch on it, had a little sinker on it, just pulling it down, take the sinker off, and I reckon it lasted 30 seconds. I'll try and keep this big bonnie out, Quinny.
Fish is here now, mate. Spanish, is it?
Spanish, yeah.
Nice. Let's open the door, slide him in. It's a funny thing, George, like, you know, up in Fiji and up in the tropics.
You catch them on pretty much anything there.
Yeah.
They're a little bit fussy here, Lee. I think they get a bit more attention.
Yeah. Eat. There we go. Just try and work him around. Ready? There we go. Look at that. Even at that size, look at those teeth. That is one very, very dangerous little animal. What's the call, boys? Let him go, or is that dinner?
I reckon that's dinner, mate.
No worries. Fresh Spanish mackerel's pretty hard to beat. So using the GPS and the sound that'll work the edge of this reef and up over the lump of it. Just before we're in about 26 metres, and now I'm just sliding up onto the lump, and the mackerel will hopefully sit up on the top of it waiting for the bait to be pushed up over the hump. It's really important to use all this stuff in conjunction with each other. And when it comes to the mackerel rig, it's quite simple, but it's a little bit sneaky. I've got a pair of KS50s on some 7-strand 30-pound wire that's just heat welded. You twist it round, get a lighter, and it heats and melts the plastic coating onto itself, makes a very neat sort of, you know, join. It's a very sneaky sort of rig, and we just have a short piece of wire that's about 15 to 20 inches long, and that's all you need. It's quite funny, even just with that short bit of wire, even if it was that long, it stops you from getting bitten off. And when the spotty mackerel are around, they're especially cagey. It's a big Spanish, apparently not so much here, but anyway. And the idea of the 2 hooks here is one gets pinned through the nose because we're going to slowly troll these baits around, but being that mackerel are a tail biter, they'll come in and slash the back of the bait off. This little hook sits right back near the tail of the bait, and it's usually that one that will do the damage. A really big mackerel would probably swallow the whole lot, but if you just tow one hook in the nose with mackerel around, you're going to miss a lot of fish. One thing you can really do too is by making use of your GPS, you know exactly how fast you're going. And it's well worth taking note of things like that. As we go with the tide or the current, the boat's obviously going to go a bit quicker. So the great thing is I can just tap my revs down at about 300 RPM at a time to slow the boat down. When I turn around and now I'm just sort of pushing up into the current on about a 45-degree angle, my speeds drop right down from about 2.4 knots down to 1.6. So I can just tap this up, there we go. And that'll pull us back up to about 2 to 2.4 knots. That way I'm keeping my speed the same because that's how I've had the last 2 bites, at about 2 to 2.4 knots. So I can even go a little bit more. There we go, we're at 2 knots now, beautiful. Got him. Nice one, George. It's a funny thing, George, like it's gone quiet, but how often are those rod tips bouncing and stuff? Do you reckon that's mackerel just looking at them?
Definitely been getting spooked, eh?
Yeah.
So the bait's getting nervous. They've just been a bit cagey this morning.
That's all we've done here. There's the whole patch of boats up there and everyone's anchored up. It's gone a little bit quiet. You've got the tide, the current running from sort of the south up to the north, and the back edge of the reef is right about here, and I'm just running back and forth across the back of the reef. Nice. You just realised he's hooked. Hoping that all their burley from all the anglers up there is going to carry over here and the fish will just sit along this edge, and so far our theory worked. Did you see him, mate?
No, I didn't see him, mate. Oh yeah, here he is.
Oh, he's all right?
Yeah.
Oh, big spotty. That's a beautiful spotty. I'll pull this door out, George.
Do you want to grab this, Lee, or you want me to grab it?
All right. Just reach in. Beautiful. Now, George.
Yeah, mate.
All yours, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Absolutely sensational fish, mate.
Pretty fish, aren't they?
I don't like it when you point these pointy things at me.
You look a bit nervous there, mate.
Wahoo and mackerel, you're always pointing their heads at me. Now, George, spotties, how big do they grow?
Biggest one I've seen is probably about 6 or 7 kilos. That's huge. A lot of the fish we've seen caught here today, like half the size of this one, so that's probably a reasonable size.
Yep. Sort of the sister of the Spanish. The Spanish grows much, much bigger.
Very similar heads.
Very similar, aren't they? But the one thing, being a mackerel, they taste very good.
Mackerel burgers.
I think so. This is pretty good here. We've actually got a bit of scungy stuff in the water. There's a bit of an upwelling or a bit of a change in the flow of the current. We're on the back edge of this reef, and this just seems like a pretty practical spot for me to be fishing, I think. You know, the fish should stack up along here waiting for that current to roll over. Doing this sort of stuff, you really want to make use of your sounder and your GPS. Through working laps around the reef, I've also found sort of the 2 highest points that I could. I've marked them, and now I'm just working this northern end of the reef, and I'm starting to work that back edge. But earlier on we had some bites working on the sort of eastern side of the reef, but you know, fish move around with the tide and the time of the day, and if you can sort of keep an eye on what's going on here, you'll catch a lot more fish just by watching your sounder and GPS. To mix things up a bit, we keep the burley going, we've got some live baits out, and the boys are just cranking some metal lures back through the burley. It can be a very effective way to get a bite. Yep. Just on that metal slug, there's been so much stuff going through on the sounder. He hasn't really woken up yet, and I think it's just because it's only on this little 4 kilo spin stick.
It's a spotty, wasn't it?
I'm not sure, mate. I didn't get much of a look. I just saw a big silver flash and went, I think that's me. Now he's just hightailing it up sea into the sun. This is just on 10-pound braid, little 4 to 6 kilo Imperium. And while it's light, it's plenty for catching this sort of stuff. We might do another bolt here. So I'm going to try and keep him away from that anchor rope. It's the time not to panic. Just keep calm and everything will be fine. Just keeping the rod movements to a minimum. Got his head down now. Last thing we want is that line to touch the hull. There we go. Should have colour pretty soon.
Oh, not a bad one, mate.
Yeah, he's all right. And I'll just walk him around to the door. There we go. That little wire trace there, George, yeah. Got him? That is why you let George.
We're in such a hurry, Lee.
There we go. That's come out. Now I'll just
Look at the fangs on that.
That is awesome. I'll give you the hot tip. I'm very happy to be catching a fish like that on a little tiny slug like that. And 10-pound braid.
You got
It's
him?
all right, George is up to his usual stunt. I think I've got him.
You like the pointy end, Lee?
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy with that. That is a nice Spanish. He's not huge, but I tell you what, it makes.
Good fish on that gear, mate.
Yeah, good fun on the light stuff.
I tell you what, 16-hour drive from Melbourne. Doesn't seem quite so long now. That's pretty impressive. Got a 40-gram gyro jig with the single hook on it. I just find with that single, when it bites into the corner of the jaw, it just stays there. And one thing that I've found over the years to be quite effective with the mackerel when I fish for them, casting, throw the lure out, and rather than just crank it straight back, I personally, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I always find I do better by letting the lure sink right down in the water column, just like this. There we go. On this light gear, I hold the rod just off being straight at the line, wind, and you generally find that the bite comes when the lure gets close to the surface, but I've had plenty of times when you see the mackerel, they're chasing it up from deeper down, but they always tend to bite it just before that lure hits the surface. And I don't know, I just find it tends to pull the fish up and it works for me. Got him. That didn't take too long. He hasn't done much yet, but anyway, we'll see what happens. Definitely a mackerel, he hit it right. So in that same area that oh, got him, George? Yep. Nice one, mate. Well done, swap sides.
I just threw out there where you hooked that fish, mate. Saw you hook one, I thought, I wonder if he's got a mate.
Sort of funny, isn't it? On this light gear, there's not enough pressure to make them really freak out, so they just sit there just shaking their head really violently. This is good fun.
So that's a bit of a trick for young players there though, Lee. Never just think there's only one fish there. Well, it's the same whether you're marlin fishing, snapper fishing, whatever.
That's exactly right.
Always be going for the second one.
Because one's just not enough.
No, there's one swimming around without a hook in it.
That's it.
It's just not good enough.
No.
Tell you what, there's a bit of weight in this.
Is there?
Yeah, maybe it's foul hooked, I don't know.
I've got to go up the front. Mine's going for a walk up near the anchor. Here we go. Easy. Easy. You all right there, George?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm just going under the boat a bit. Where's yours? Hang on, I'm coming over. I'm coming over there.
This is a nice fish. Yours, I'd say, be the same size, mate.
Oh yeah, it's a good fish.
Mine's going back up again.
Lee's on his second lap.
That's a nice fish. This crystal clear, dead calm water. Here he goes down the side of the boat. Quinny, can you just move that? Oh no, you're right, you're right. He's gone back.
Well, that's a better fish, eh?
He's a good fish.
I'll get this out of the road, eh, Lee?
Yeah, you're right. Go for it, George. That's a nice fish. Oh, you got him.
Hang on to him.
Oh, you got him, Quinny.
Snapped it, yeah.
Oh, quick, get him in before he goes out.
Yeah, busted off, but you got him. Well done, mate.
I'll try and guide mine back down.
These are a little bit short for mackerel.
Well done, George.
Oh,
Oh,
nearly put him through Lee's line.
where's that slug? Like, that is just the size of a whitebait. This guy is giving me the serious runaround. He hasn't done any huge screaming runs, and that's why he's just plugged it out for so long. Sort of conserved his energy by doing laps of the boat, wrapping himself up on the anchor a couple of times.
2 laps of the boat, mate. That's pretty good. Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Steer him back around, mate.
Thanks, George.
No worries, mate.
He's hooked in the perfect spot, right in the tip of the nose. You can see what George has done there. He shoved his head under that little foothold, and it's a good thing to do because that's the bitey end, and these guys will chop everything on the way to your bones. All right, do you know what I reckon that means, George?
Must be getting near lunchtime, Lee.
Must be countery time. Time to head in. What do we want to do? Keep him or let him go?
Oh, I think I might keep one and take home.
Sure.
Yeah.
Back to Port Stephens, you
Yeah.
go.
That's it, the kids will love that.
Beautiful. He's going on ice and we're going in for a counter lunch.
Beautiful.